Hi, how's it going? Welcome back to the channel. Zach D Productions here, and I am here with the list video. And for this list video, I will be naming some underrated bands. Now, keep in mind that this is just my opinion, and you really could add on to this list. You could technically make a top 20 or even a top 30 most underrated bands. But I'm going to keep this list short and simple. I'm going to stick with 7 bands for this list. So yeah, 7 underrated bands, and we're going to begin with Sevendust. Now, Sevendust is without a doubt an underrated band, even though they're a band that I think still does fairly well for themselves. I do think these guys could get more recognition, you know. I know there's some debates on which era of Sevendust is better, their new metal stuff or their hard rock stuff, but I personally really like both eras. I don't think there's a bad era of this band, even though they've changed their new metal sound. I can't say that they've necessarily changed for the worst, you know, because I think all their stuff is really good. So, yeah, I'm not sure why Sevendust isn't getting a lot of recognition, but I think they definitely deserve to be, you know, as popular as other new metal and hard rock bands out there. So next band up, we got Red. Now, Red is probably the most underrated hard rock band in my opinion. You know, I've seen these guys live before, like twice. Yeah, definitely a fantastic band. And you know, I think Red deserves to be just as big, or maybe bigger than the more popular hard rock bands of the of today, like Breaking Benjamin, 3 Days Grace, and even Skillet. I mean, yeah, Red is definitely a fantastic band, and probably the best hard rock band of the 2000s. At least that's what I think. But yeah, Red, underrated band for sure. Next band up, we got Demon Hunter. Now, I had to include Demon Hunter on this list, even though they're a band that I wouldn't consider my number one anymore like I used to. Demon Hunter is a band that I will always put on an underrated band list, because I do think that they deserve to be up there with other metalcore bands. You know, I think they deserve to be right up there even with the more popular metalcore bands like Killswitch Engage and Trivium. I think they deserve to be right up there with them as far as popularity goes. Not really sure why Demon Hunter doesn't really get that same recognition, because I think they're actually one of the most unique metalcore bands, especially considering within recent time with their experimentation with certain songs. Even though I don't think their most recent stuff isn't as good as some of their previous stuff, it's still really solid, I think. So yeah, I think Demon Hunter does have plenty of I think they're a band that has plenty to offer. So yeah, definitely a great band. So yeah, Demon Hunter, underrated. Next band up, we got a band that I really don't talk about much on this channel, but I do think they're a very good band and an underrated band, and that is the band Vector. Now, I think I did review one of Vector's albums on this channel one time. I believe it was their latest album, and yeah, definitely an interesting band. They're not really the style of metal that I listen to that much, which is why I really don't talk about them much on this channel, because, well, let's just say I'm not, like, crazy about them, but I do think they're a very good band. They're kind of like thrash metal that combines several other stuff of subgenres of metal into their sound. And you know, this is a newer band too. They only have 3 albums. I believe their debut came out in the late 2000s, so yeah. And I'm not really into, you know, bands that are like that new, but they're surprisingly a very good band. And if you are someone who likes lyrical contents about outer space and science fiction and stuff like that, I think Vector is a band that'll be up your alley, because their themes kind of do surround that idea, which is pretty cool. So yeah, Vector, while they're not one of my favorite bands, I think they're a very good band, and I do think that they deserve more recognition. I think this is a band that I think is worthy of more recognition than what they're getting. So yeah, Vector I'd say is an underrated band. Next band up, now I guess you can make a debate on whether or not these guys are underrated, but it's Queensryche. Now, the reason I say Queensryche is underrated is because, well, I don't know why these guys aren't as big as some of the other bands from the 1980s, like Iron Maiden and Metallica. I mean, because I personally think they deserve to be right up there with them. I mean, now Queensryche is more progressive metal, so maybe that's why they're not getting that same recognition. And progressive metal is one of my favorite subgenres of metal these days, and yeah, I do kind of think that maybe Queensryche used to be a lot more popular than they are now. Even though I would agree that their newer stuff isn't as good as their earlier stuff, I do think that Queensryche's most recent stuff has still been really good. So, yeah, I do think Queensryche deserves to get more recognition, and that's why I think they're kind of underrated. So, yeah, I got Queensryche on this list. I think they deserve to have a place on this list. So, next band up, we got Fates Warning. Now, Fates Warning is one of the pioneers of progressive metal, and once again, another great band. Not sure why these guys don't get that same recognition as other 1980s bands. So, yeah, I mean, I know I'm a fairly new fan of Fates Warning, but from all that I have heard from them, I've really enjoyed them. I've pretty much liked everything that I've heard from them by far, and from what I can tell, Fates Warning is a great band, and yeah, a band that I would say is underrated. So we're going to end things off with one more band, and that last band being Vigester. Now, as you guys know, Vigester is, I do know these guys personally, Cliff Conway, Kyle, they're all cool dudes. So, yeah, these guys are kind of like hard rock, and yeah, definitely a very good band that I think has plenty of potential. They're kind of like an EP band at the moment. They only have 3 EPs to their name at the moment, so yeah. Their latest EP, All in Jest, being my favorite of all their work, so yeah. Definitely a band that has plenty of potential, and this is obviously the smallest band on this list. So yeah, I mean, if you like hard rock, I personally recommend them. So yeah, and I look forward to what these guys have to offer next in their discography. So Vigester, keep up the good work. So that's it for my list of underrated bands. Let me know what you guys think. Do you agree with my list? And what are some bands that you would personally add to the list? Feel free to let me know. Thanks for watching. Have a nice day, and take care.